To Siman Chaf Zayin Sif Tes, the Mechaber is now going to tell us where the Shalrosh should be placed. Mokem Hanochis Tefillah Shalrosh. The placement of the Shalrosh is Mitchilosei Ikri Hasar. The end of the tefillin is at the beginning of where the hair grows. Meaning, you figure out your hairline, and if you're bald or receding, you figure out where your hairline was, and the end of the tefillin is at the beginning of the hairline. The tefillin cannot go over the hairline. And he says, Ad Seif hamakim shemoicha shel tinik roifis. And how far back does it go? It goes until the soft part of the head of a baby. I'll get to the back part in a second. Let's go to the front part. The front part is the end of the tefillin has to be no further than the beginning of the hairline. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Pirish de beinei necha lav mamishu. Although the pasuk says you should beinei necha, it doesn't mean mamish beinei necha. It says the word beinei necha by tefillin. It says there's an issa deraisa of ripping out your hair after losing a loved one. It's leisasimu karcha beinei necha, and the issa of leisasimu karcha beinei nechem is by the hair. There's no issa of pulling out skin. It's pulling out hair. So it has to be at a makam of hair. So it has to be dafka. The tefillin has to be on the place of hair. He says. The Mishnah Berurah says many people are not careful in this halacha. He says a lot of people have it that the tefillin starts by the hairline and it hangs over the forehead. And they're mevatel in issa deraisa. Even a smidgen of the tefillin cannot be over that part. And he says, and even if you have long hair, so the hair goes on the forehead, that doesn't help. It's where the hair grows, not where the hair is. And he says, if you do this, it's not only mevatel mitzvah deraisa, it's kilu you didn't wear tefillin, and it's a bracha levatala. And he says that's why it's always safer to be a little higher up than a little bit lower, because if you go lower, you're not yaitz at all. It's also why it's better to have smaller tefillin than to have very large tefillin, because when it's very large tefillin, there's a chance that they'll hang over. We'll get to why Chabad has very large tefillin later on. There is a shir of why they do this, but part of the Indian to be careful. So how far does can the tefillin go back towards the back of the head? So the Mishnah Berurah, the Mechaber says it's to the point of the head which is soft. Says the Mishnah Berurah, now, the Bir Halacha brings down that Rabbi Neruchim's shita is that the entire top of the head is acceptable. Meaning, you take your finger by your hairline, you go down, at some point the head will start turning downward. The Rabbi Neruchim holds the entire top of the head is acceptable. So according to Rabbi Neruchim, there's plenty of room on the top of the head. The tefillin can start an inch back, no problem. That's Rabbi Neruchim shita. However, the Mishnah Berurah brings down to Bir Halacha that the Rambam disagrees, and the Rambam says it's not the entire top of the head, it's the first half of the head. Meaning, basically, think of if you were to make the entire top of the head before it goes down, split that in half. That's the shita of the Rambam, and the Mishnah Berurah says it's obviously better to be mamacher for that shita. Now, he does say that it's better to be err on the side of going back than going forward, meaning, if you go past the hairline, you're not yaitz at all. If you go back, at least according to Ben Yeruchim, you're still yaitz. So it's better to err on the side of going back towards the back of the head than to go forward past the hairline, because you're not yaitz at all. But that is the shear for the back of the head. So is the top of the head the entire top of the head? Meaning, so you asked before, how far could it go? So according to the Rebbeinu Yerucham, it's the entire top of the head. According to the Rambam, and that's how we paskin, it's half of the top of the head. So you have to figure out the top of your head, and you sort of split it in half. So it's a little bit. One more halacha the Mechaber says in Yud. Now, where is the dalid, or the kesher in the back of the head? Where is that? So he says, be'oirif, that it should be at the back of the head, be'oirif, and that means the Mishnah Berurah says, shusoif hagulgoilus, the end of the bone. There's a bone in the back of your head. It should be right below the bone. Right below the bone. Soif hagulgoilus, v'hu neged aponim, which is the opposite of the face, meaning it's like if you were to draw a line, it's the opposite of the mouth, if you were to go through your head. And it's better for the knot of the kesher, right above the cavity. Right above the cavity. So if you go in the back of your head, there's a bone, and then there's a cavity. The kesher should be right above the cavity, sort of like resting on the bone. And he says, What you cannot do at all is to have it where it's so low that it's resting in an area where there's no hair. If it's big enough, it will actually rest below the nape of your neck, in an area where there's no hair. That you're not yotza. It has to be closer to that bone area, but not all the way down at the back of the neck. Meaning, if you were to take the kesher and draw a line on the other side, if it's hitting your neck, you're not yotza. If it's hitting your mouth, that's the perfect spot. So you want to just do it, basically just draw a line. B'kitzer, you want it to be on a makam of sire, and he says, Ikar kesher l'mayla min aguma. Again, right above that little cavity, where the bone protrudes. B'kitzer, that's where it should be, ideally, but definitely not too low that it's on a place where the hair does not grow. Let me explain. The Berurah Yomi brings down that he quotes the Ma'aser Rab, which is the Gra, that he says it should be tachas shipua hakadkoid, which is at the bottom in the slope. Tachas shipua, beneath the slope. Now that's not what he writes in the Mishnah Berurah. It's in the Berurah Yomi. The Mishnah Berurah continues in Berurah Yomi. Kain b'sefer mashma kain b'sefer atruma hakesher shel tefillin. He says tzarich sheyeh lamayla ba'orif v'loy lamata b'marpekas hatzoyer. He says it should be above the nape and not opposite the neck. So in the Berurah Yomi, he mentions that it should be by the slope, but in the Mishnah Berurah he says toiv shemunach ikar hakesher l'mayla min aguma. That means that the ikar part of the kesher should be above the guma. The guma is that cavity in your neck. So above it would be, I guess, where the bone is sloping up. I'm not saying above the bone, but I guess where the bone is sloping up, it should not be in the cavity. It should be slightly above that. That's what he says. It seems that it's l'chachila, because it seems that even if it's in the cavity, that's fine. As long as it's not too low down, then you're going to be okay. And then the Mechaber continues, Sarach l'chaven aktzitza shete be'emtza, and the dalet should be in the center of the head, not too far to the right, not too far to the left. Kadei shete kneged ben einayim v'gam hakeshia be'emtza ha'orav v'lo yata l'kan l'kan. It shouldn't be too much to the right or to the left. B'tzar she'hamokim shebekesher shenir kein daled l'tzad hachutz, and the dalet should be facing outward. Meaning the black part should be facing out; it should not be inverted. V'adin bekesher shel yad tzarich shelo yisapich. On the yad also, the yud should not be inverted, so that you shouldn't have the back of the ritzuas facing out. The regular part of the ritzuas should be facing out.